So, Justin, we always finish with one spicy hot take for fantasy football in the upcoming year, or if it's in season for that year coming. But my Denver heart bleeds already at your Noah Fant one. But excuse me, do you have an even spicier one that you're prepared to air here?
Well, you guys tell me. I just did a bold predictions article in the last couple weeks, and I've talked about that. I touched on Gardner Minshew a couple times. One of them was that Gardner Minshew will be a top 10 quarterback, mostly because his rushing numbers there. But let's say, okay, is this spicy enough? Le'Veon Bell and David Johnson are both going to get back into the RB1 ranks this year. Everyone's
Oh,
writing them
nice,
off.
spicy.
Everyone's writing them off. They're 28 years old. They're so old for running backs. People look at that clip of David Johnson last year running like he's Jason Witten on the field, and everyone overreacts to one clip. The guy was hurt in the first 6 weeks of the season. David Johnson was a top 5 fantasy running back. Then he gets hurt. Chase Edmonds comes in. He produces. They go trade for Kenyon Drake. David Johnson sees that and says, I need my job. I'm going to lose my starting job. He rushes back. He wasn't healthy. He looks terrible in the second half of the season. But everybody, for some reason, forgets that in the first 6 weeks, he was producing. So I think people are just overlooking him completely. Houston has all the motivation in the world to give him as many touches as he could possibly want after trading him for DeAndre Hopkins. So Bill O'Brien, whatever you think of him, he wants DJ to do well there. And we saw Carlos Hyde step in last year, and I wrote him off. I didn't think Carlos Hyde was going to go in there and put up 1,000 yards in that offense, but the volume was there. So you have Johnson coming in, able to do that, but also he's going to catch a bunch of passes, which Carlos Hyde was not going to do last season. So I would be almost surprised at this point if we don't see a big rebound year from David Johnson. And then Le'Veon Bell, he was knocking a lot of rust off. He sat out. He signs with the Jets. He shows up there last year. That Jets team was cursed from the get-go, whether it's Sam Darnold getting mono and missing time early in the season, a terrible offensive line. Adam Gase is not a great coach. We know at this point. And I wonder whether Le'Veon Bell is going to get traded at some point this season because it really seems like Adam Gase doesn't like him. They brought in Frank Gore. They take P. Ryan as a guy who could step in maybe be the running back of the future there. So that's another one. I wouldn't be shocked if Le'Veon Bell ends up on another team halfway through the year. But if he stays with the Jets, or even if he gets traded, it'll probably be a good situation that needs a running back. But the offensive line is better. They've invested in the offensive line, first-round pick. Kai Becton, you put him at tackle. Hopefully Sam Darnold stays healthy this year. I think that would help the offense. They're not going to start from behind the 8 ball with him missing time in the first month. And Le'Veon Bell wasn't that bad last year. It's another guy that people look at because that offense was terrible. But he was a top 20 running back last year. He's going to get the receiving work. I'm not that scared of Frank Gore. As a Bills fan, Frank Gore, I love him. He's fantastic. It's wild that he's still doing what he's doing. But he's not a starting running back anymore. This is a guy who's just a complimentary piece who gets brought in to help train the younger running backs, to help bring that work ethic in. He is not somebody that's going to come in and take significant touches away from Le'Veon Bell. And really, he might help Le'Veon Bell because Bell was getting just ground last year. He was just getting crushed because he had to do everything. He was getting all the touches. He might be more effective if you take a little bit of that workload off of him and he's a little fresher later in the season. So I like both those guys to rebound this year. And I don't think a lot of people do. I think people are just writing them off and they're getting excited about the rookies coming in and such a good rookie class. But those are two guys who are slated to get a lot of volume and in my mind still have a lot of talent.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I would say on David Johnson is don't accidentally draft Duke Johnson because they are both D Johnson for Houston on your draft board. So get the right one. But yeah, I'm pretty high on David Johnson as well. Maybe not as high as you as Le'Veon Bell. So that was pretty spicy. I think that'll do, Murf. What do you reckon?
All right, sweet.
Absolutely. That one was fire. I'm with you on Lev Bell. I'm not quite there on Johnson, but I'm more than willing to be proved wrong.
Well, I mean, if you agreed with me, it wouldn't be a bold take at that point, right? You got to have at least somebody disagree with some part of it.
Absolutely, but I was with you on Bell all the way. I wrote a piece about he was a top 5 ADP buy just based on his ADPs. He's arguably 2 rounds too low, or at least he was when I wrote the article. He's gone up a little bit since.
Yeah, for sure.